afternoon. Welcome to our show. I'm your host, Melissa Ridgen. Many of us are on lockdown, and even those who still might have some freedom, there are no events to attend, and there's really no reason to dress up because there's nowhere to go. But good news, tomorrow Indigenous Fashion Week kicks off, and surprise, you are all invited. A trip to Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto for you, and for you, and for you, and for me. I feel like Métis Oprah, but it's all true. Front row seats for all of us at all of the fashion shows, plus behind the scenes hobnobbing and shopping. You're invited. It's all at your fingertips. Because it's Indigenous Fashion Week, it seems appropriate to put fashion and glam in focus today. We've got a jam-packed show for you this hour. Clothes, accessories, makeup, all by our people, and some wise words as we begin to think shift away from how we've been clothing ourselves in recent decades, helping to kill the planet in the process. Before we get going with guests, the biannual Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto kicks off tomorrow and runs through Sunday. As I said, anybody can attend. It's online this year. In August, 4 runway presentations featuring 16 designers were filmed at Harbourfront Centre in Toronto. The 4 short films will be screened each day of the Fashion Week and are free to all. I want you to take a sneak peek. I sat down earlier this week with designer and activist Sage Paul, who is the artistic director and founder of Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto. So, Sage, thanks for having us over into your lovely kitchen. I feel like you've had us over for coffee or tea. So, in some ways, this is an even better fashion week, I guess. I mean, some might argue because it's virtual. You don't have to have the money for a flight to Toronto and a hotel. You know, is this year's Indigenous Fashion Week more inclusive and accessible to people?
Definitely, it opens up the doors to further accessibility, further reach for audiences. I will say it's really sad that we can't all be together, especially a lot of the designers who are, whose community this is. You know, we all get to meet up together once, you know, every 2 years at Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto, and this year we can't. So, you know, it's a, you know, one side it's awesome, and the other side it's still sad that we can't all be together. But
how hard was it to get?
Making do.
Yeah, no, it's just a crappy, weird time. How hard was it to get people on board to do this virtually? I mean, like you said, you don't have all that excitement and thrill of the people lining the catwalk to see your clothing. Was it a tough sell to get people to do their showcase their creations virtually?
It was a lot of conversation. We really thought hard about how it would look like and who we were working with to produce these runway films. And the designers put a lot of trust into us, Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto, and our artistic team to present their work, and you know, also do it in a way that will be exciting and interesting for audiences, but still represent their brand. Yeah.
So this runs for 4 days. It starts Thursday. What's in store for people who would want to check this out?
Oh, so much. We've got a really, really awesome program. Of course, the runway films. So those feature 16 designers every night at 7 p.m. November 26th to the 29th. We also have a pop-up marketplace online. So it opens 12 noon on November 26th and runs until November 29th. There's a series of panels, so if you're more interested in the conversation and education, awareness, definitely check those out. We'll have a chat moderator the entire time, so you'll be able to be a part of the conversation. You can also check out a preview of our virtual exhibition, which will be launching early next year. And everything will happen at ifwtoronto.com.
We're going to make sure to keep plugging that website for people to take part, because this really is, I mean, like I said earlier, we don't all have the ability to hop on a plane and go and participate in something like this. So to be able to go on the website and do this at the same time all of these other, highfalutin people are able to do it, we can all feel, a little trendier, a little more glamorous. It's the midst of a global pandemic. It's made people take pause and reflect a little bit on how we live this life in this world. I saw a TED Talk where you had said that, it's not frivolous. Fashion isn't frivolous. What we wear is the most profound political statement that we can make. Explain that.
Well, our clothing there's much more than just what we choose to wear. It really goes into the environment, the protection of the environment, the way people are treated, the way that we represent our cultures. So when you make that decision, when you're getting dressed in the morning, think about what was the impact on the environment? If it was made locally, if the fur or leather was hunted locally, or if it was mass farmed, where the way the fabric is dyed. And then also just the overall ethical thoughts around representation of culture. And so these are the kinds of things we really should be thinking about when we're getting dressed in the morning. And that goes down to making more conscious consumer decisions, like thinking about who made my clothing, who made the very fibers. My auntie knit this for me. It snowed in Toronto, so I'm keeping warm. But nice. Yeah, just to be aware of who's making our clothing, where it's coming from, the idea behind everything is super important.
Do you think that people fully understand? I mean, everybody, and I can say this in terms of going to the protests and marches and actions. You see all of these young activists who are there with the that fighting spirit, and they're there for social justice and environmental justice. And you look at them, it's like you're wearing H&M, or you're wearing, do you think that there is a disconnect between what you're fighting for with a lot of people, especially young people, and then what they put on their clothes, or they put on their bodies, sorry?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a disconnect. There's also a question of accessibility. H&M, fast fashion, gives people access to things that we weren't able to have access to, just financially, at a price. But that does come at a cost on the earth, a cost on, the labor standards for people who are making those clothing. So it's not a simple answer of start wearing locally made, because it does become more expensive, and thinking of pieces as heirloom pieces, buy one shirt that's going to last you for years, as opposed to buying something that's really hot this season. And that's going to be a change that takes some time, and definitely we have to be gentle with each other, especially for people who are fighting for very important things like water, like our land, like each other. And when it comes, if we have to wear H&M, we do. And we really have to be gentle on each other as we walk through these things that we're trying to protect.
Is there more of a conversation, I think, happening that, what we're, buying these clothes, buy clothes originally and keep them forever, buy staple pieces, or buying your clothes secondhand, so something that's been discarded by somebody else, go buy it and you can give it some new life, and then make sure you get it back in there for somebody else to get new life. Are you seeing that more? I mean, I certainly remember when I was a teenager, or in my early 20s, or even into my 30s, if somebody had said to me, going and buying secondhand clothes, be like, right? I remember that. And now I haven't bought new clothing since, I think I'm on my 6th year. All my clothes that I buy are secondhand, or are made from scratch by local people. But I have a career. I have a job. I can afford to do that. Somebody who's in university probably can't go and afford $30 for a locally made T-shirt, right? But is the conversation happening more now?
Definitely, the conversation is happening more, and there's a network of young people, just people in general, where their peers are designers and they want to support their friends, they want to support their family members. And I think once they know the designer, they're going to save up and get something really special from their local designers. So it's a slow moving process, and I think it's really important, but there definitely is movement towards buying locally, buying native made, and just that awareness as consumers.
Well, give us that website again where people can, everybody watching can be part of Toronto, Indigenous Fashion Week in Toronto this year. That's, I guess, the one good gift that 2020 has given us. How do we participate?
ifwtoronto.com. It'll also broadcast live to our social media, so our Facebook and our Instagram, I believe, and YouTube. IFW Toronto is our handle on social media.
Sage, you do amazing work there. We look forward to this event all the time. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys all online.
It was great to talk to Sage earlier this week. Also for Indigenous Fashion Week, in addition to the 4 films featuring 16 designers, there's a marketplace element to it where you can shop your heart out, supporting Indigenous creators. That website again is ifwtoronto.com. You can fill large portions of the next 4 days there. I'd also like to encourage you to check out Sage Paul's TED Talk, which we talked about a little bit. Show it to your fashion-hungry kids. TEDx Talks has a YouTube channel. Sage is on there. It's a brilliant 14-minute talk about the impact that our clothes have on this planet and how we could think shift to something better. Well, 2 of the artists featured at Indigenous Fashion Week Toronto are the duo who make up Indi City, the jaw-dropping accessory line responsible for some of those major earrings that you're seeing chalking up all the likes on Instagram. Angel is wearing a pair in the interview. They are designed and created in-house by her and Alexandra, who joined me earlier this week from Calgary. So, Angel and Alexandra, you're growing up in small town Saskatchewan. Are either of you at any point thinking one day you'll be doing Toronto Fashion Week?
I'm the one that grew up in northern Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And I remember I always wanted to be a fashion designer ever since I was a little girl. I had 2 little sisters, so I'd always dress them up and make them do runways and stuff like that with me. But I think coming from a small town, you always feel like there's only X amount of jobs that you can actually aspire to. Yeah. And fashion designer and artist was just not something that, the adults would encourage at the time.
Very true. Alex, for you, was this a lifelong dream for you?
I never thought I would end up in fashion, but I knew I would do something in the arts for sure. So I went to school at SAIT and took new media production and design, and that's where I learned graphic design, photography, and filmmaking.
So I have to ask, how has you guys are partners in life, partners at home, working from home. How has this pandemic impacted your artistic abilities, your production, just the day-to-day of what you guys do?
That's a great question. It's actually kind of funny because our life was kind of like pandemic before pandemic happened. We were always immersed in our creativity, in our home, and our space, and very rarely came out of our, our creative space. So we didn't really change a lot other than events, not being able to attend events and stuff.
You guys were isolating before isolating was cool.
Exactly. For us.
So I need to know to each of you, who is your favorite Indigenous clothing designer or jewelry designer?
That's a good question. There's like 10 of them. I love everybody. Everyone's amazing. I really am inspired by the way B Yellowtail has kind of set the bar for other Indigenous artists being inclusive with her collective. Jay Okama is just incredible. Like, her design is just in another space and time. Shosho Esquero is amazing. Trip Charbs, he's incredible. His beadwork is just lovely. Alex?
For me, I would say Section 35 for sure.
Yeah.
Natives and TVS and Mobilize. Basically, the designers that are more on the graphic side, I resonate with, because
I think it's interesting, you know, for many of us, we've always kind of viewed fashion as maybe something for other people, you know, like country club types or ladies who lunch or somehow have the means to jet away to Europe, to fashion shows and stuff. You know, I don't think for a lot of us that we didn't really feel like fashion spoke to us. Or if it did speak to us, it certainly wasn't accessible to us. But now you guys just threw out these names of like our people doing fashion. Is it kind of mind-blowing to you that we've got to this point where it is accessible and this is us doing it?
I think it's been really amazing to be like part of that, you know, and to see and have these, I guess, mentors through the process who were first out of the gate. Angela de Montigny is one that I can think of. She's been out there for a while and doing her thing, and just it's such amazing representation to have going forward, and then to be part of that creative inspiration is just, it's such a gift. And I feel like the world, and the fashion world in particular, has always really needed this kind of energy infused into it.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, so what are we going to say? Well, first of all, those earrings, which my producer and I, Beverly, we co-produced this show. We were sitting here drooling over your guys' website and the earrings, which I continue to drool over. What are they made of? Are they heavy?
These ones are actually pretty heavy. They were made for the runway, so they were made to have some like weight to them so they could stay in place.
Yeah.
But we do make a smaller version of these ones, the mini medicine florals, and then the footlongs, which are a little bit smaller than these ones in particular. Mm-hmm. Those ones are lightweight, like anybody can wear them. They're made out of acrylic, so they just kind of move with the way that you move.
Yeah, they're all actually pretty lightweight, all of them. Yeah.
It's hard to tell when you're shopping. You think like these look stunning, but am I going to be wearing them and, you know, feeling weighed down? We're curious, what is in store for what are we going to see from you guys at Indigenous Fashion Week?
So the collection is actually really hits close to home. My late cookum, she was a beadworker, and the collection is called Asiski Muskiki, which means earth medicine. And what it is it's a juxtaposition between traditional design and contemporary design. The way that it started was Cookum's beadwork, and then Alex did the digitization of the designs. And we curated a color palette and added different aspects to it. But it's about like connecting to the earth and being present with the ancestors and spirits and the natural aspects of life, while in this kind of like Zoom online sudden world that we're all immersed in.
Yeah. So what we do is we take hand-drawn designs that we create ourselves, and then I throw them in Illustrator. That's how we digitalize them. And then we take them to a makerspace here in Calgary, and we laser cut them ourselves. So we do everything from like A to Z, and then our own photography, our own branding, and yeah.
You're a powerhouse. Oh my gosh. So what's next for you guys? Are you sticking with like this? You guys have this nailed. Are you going to keep doing this? Keep escalating this? Are you branching off to something else? Where are you setting your sights?
Well, Indi City has always been kind of the idea of like building a city, so many facets to the city. Accessory design just seems like the medium that we can communicate with best right now. Mm-hmm. But fashion is like a form of storytelling, and that's something that we'd like to carry forward in all different areas of the city as we build it.
Where can we find you? Where can we buy?
Right now we are at the Royal Alberta Museum. We're at the Sutina Museum and the Grey Eagle Casino gift shop. We're going to be eventually in a few more spots, but we'll talk about that later.
We'll have you back for that.
And the website. And the website.
What's the website?
Go ahead.
IndiCity.ca.
And we can find you on Instagram as well?
Yeah, we're on Instagram as Indi_City and at Indi City Productions as well.
Thank you guys for taking the time out to chat about your lovely accessories. We love them. We love you. And can't wait to see you guys at Toronto Fashion Week.
Thank you so much for having us.
Those earrings are incredible. It's time for us to take a break, but we have so much fashion and glam ahead, including how an Anishinaabe professor is one of many helping to steer the fashion ship to a more sustainable and responsible course. You'll meet him when we come back. Join our conversation now. Send your thoughts in an email to infocus@aptn.ca and follow and tweet us at APTN InFocus. Welcome back. I want to say hey to all of our viewers watching on Facebook Live. Margaret said on that Facebook comment thread that this shows the resilience and pride of individual and artistic abilities of each designer within Turtle Island. That's about watching our designers and their work and it being showcased and so proudly showcased. So we need to go now to Ryerson's Riley Coucherin. I want you to watch a video before we meet him. Take a look.
Fashion is continuing to use clothing as a weapon. Colonization is ongoing. People have been trying to erase our culture for so long. Okay, now we need to look at how do we bring it back? What does cultural resurgence look like? There's a lot of before and after photos of children going to and coming from residential schools. And in the before photo, we see kids wearing their traditional garments. So they're in a buckskin or their regalia, traditional beadwork, quill work. But then often the photos were actually manipulated. So kids weren't wearing shoes, for example, or they're holding a gun. And then in the after photo, they're more upright. They're wearing suits. They're wearing corsets. They're in Western clothing that was meant to symbolize Western civilization, that they had been civilized in the schools. So it was used as propaganda for the Canadian public. People hear Indigenous fashion design and they think feather and fringe and turquoise. Fashion can seem very elitist, and if you're not a part of that system, it's hard to break into it. The biggest question on my mind right now is, do we want to participate in the fashion industry, or do we want to exist in our own worlds and create our own worlds? It's kind of a large philosophical question. How do you exist outside of capitalism? How do you not participate in that industrialized, globalized fashion system? The first time I identified as an Indigenous person was actually at a community consultation for Ryerson's response to the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They asked us, like, what could we be doing better? And I thought of the business school here at Ryerson, and outside of the business school, there's this really amazing artist who makes moccasins and he does paintings. And in that moment, I just thought of him being outside of the school, and these business students just feet away being inside of this institution having so many more opportunities to launch their own businesses. But why can't this man who has such a skill, why doesn't he have the same support? I actually broke down in that meeting, in that consultation, because I just felt such pain for this person. And the elder who was on hand, Joanne Delaire, she actually called that blood memory. That all the trauma that my ancestors went through was actually manifesting in that moment, and I was seeing it in the present. And it was a transformative experience. It really changed my research and my life. And I thought, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to support people like that who have these skills, who have just been ignored. Angela de Montagny is a Cree Métis fashion designer who works in Hamilton. I love her brand because it's really a better kind of luxury. So she sells really high-end garments, but they're inherently sustainable, environmentally and socially. She knows where everything's coming from. She knows who's making it. She has one-on-one relationships with clients. It's all very human. So I was doing my master's research and I needed a participant to study. I really wanted to look at better kinds of luxury. And I was in Hamilton interviewing Angela for a different project at the School of Fashion, and she said she could use a bit of help. So I spent 3 months with her, researching, learning about her. And through that, I learned about what Indigenous designers need. You just don't have access to the kinds of resources you might need to start your own fashion business. You don't have as much access to capital, to the mentorship. You're up against kind of racist stereotypes when people come into your store. There's just a whole lot of intersectional barriers that you face as an Indigenous fashion designer. Thinking interdisciplinary about Indigenous fashion has allowed me to kind of simultaneously look at that history and then also imagine ways to move forward. I mean, the ultimate goal is actually a council or some sort of organization to help Indigenous designers. I'm interested in mobilizing Anishinaabe intelligence and really working together to create our own worlds. Ani, Riley Coucherin Indishnakas, Makwin Dodem, Big Tagong Nishnabeg in Dunjaba.
That's Ryerson's Riley Coucherin. He joins us now. Hi, Riley.
Bonjour, hello.
Every time I watch that video, it just gets me right in the feels there. You know, really powerful words, and I thank you I've got so many questions I don't even really necessarily know where to start. But let's just start with the work that you're doing at Ryerson and the Indigenous Fashion Support Program there.
So yeah, the work I do is very multifaceted. I am an assistant professor, so I am teaching, and at Ryerson School of Fashion, we are designing new courses and curriculums that recognize Indigenous ways of making clothing and respecting those cultural approaches. But besides that, I'm also a mentor for a few different Indigenous fashion incubator programs. So there's Entrepreneurth, which is based out of Yellowknife, but there's also the Indigenous Fashion Support Program run through Ryerson's Fashion Zone, which is our incubation. And with that, I think we're really trying to think about an Indigenous approach to business. There are lots of incubation programs out there, lots of tips and tricks about how to become a successful entrepreneur. But entrepreneurship looks different for Indigenous communities. Our entrepreneurs are social entrepreneurs. We're supporting our families and communities. And so often we're giving back to youth, to elders, to the land. So we're trying to think through what would Indigenous fashion entrepreneurship program look like, and how can we better support designers?
How did you get interested in fashion in the first place? I mean, young kid, it's Treaty 3 territory you're from, right? Treaty 3?
Not signatories to Robinson Superior,
okay.
Bigtigong Nishnaweg.
Gotcha. So, you're growing up out in the res and you're like, I want to get into fashion. Is that how, walk us through that?
Yeah, I think so many young people in general kind of grow up enamored with fashion. I certainly did. I read GQ and Vogue magazine, and I definitely imagined myself always moving to the big city, moving to Toronto to start a career in fashion. Turns out I didn't know how to design. I couldn't sketch or draw or do any of that. So I thought I would be a journalist instead, and I went to Ryerson's journalism program. I took the long way around to get to fashion, eventually coming at it from a historical lens, thinking about the fashion system in general. And then when I got to grad school, I realized that you could actually critique the fashion industry. You didn't need to participate in it, because I was working in retail for very large corporations and seeing firsthand the environmental damage, the social damage that these corporations are having. And so I realized, you can make a career out of critiquing fashion and teaching about better ways of doing fashion. So that was my long way around to the fashion industry.
I love at one point that there was a stop at like, maybe I'll be a journalist. I think that's like most journalists I know have I wanted to be this, and then I couldn't, so I became a journalist. So it's interesting that you kind of stopped there for a minute, went, no, I could do better than this, and then just came around the other side of the fashion industry. So
no tea, no shade.
Good for you.
We love our journalists.
So despite this being your industry, you describe yourself as anti-fashion. Explain.
So the fashion industry is just horrible for the environment. Fast fashion has fundamentally changed our relationship to clothing. It actually wasn't that long ago that we used to make our own clothing, that, if you tore a pair of pants, you would mend them. And so much more care and attention was given to our clothing. And that really changed with, first the Industrial Revolution, but it really, really accelerated after World War II when Canadian manufacturing was in decline. And we opened up the floodgates to low-cost goods from Southeast Asia. And this whole fast fashion model, the H&Ms and Zaras of the world really, really took over. And we became a society of consumers. And that has really, really, just destroyed the environment, and the social repercussions are horrible. So I have this love-hate relationship with fashion. I love, fashion and creativity and the potential of fashion, but not the mainstream industry. That's not what I'm interested in, and that's not what I want Indigenous designers to strive for. I don't think to be a successful designer, you need to open up a big factory and move offshore and show in New York and Paris. I think we can redefine notions of success that better fit what our Indigenous communities want and need.
Speaking of fast fashion, I had asked this of Stage Paul earlier in the show, who's made this a real issue for her. How do we get our youth thinking about what they wear? There's so many already activist-oriented youth out there, but they're also like every other teen and 20-something, they want to be fashionable. And you see them at these actions, and they're in Ardennes or they're H&M or they're Urban Planet, these fast fashion brands, and you're just looking, going like, what? There is such a disconnect between what you're here marching for or against. How do we get young people thinking more sustainably while they are interested in being hyper fashionable but also affordability? Like, how do we connect all those dots?
Right. I think we could simultaneously make that connection more clear, that our fashion choices are destroying the planet as a baseline of knowledge. And I think we could also do more to make the connection that Indigenous fashion, gets us back on our land. It gets us working with elders, working with knowledge holders. Like the supply chain that goes into making Indigenous fashion is so community focused, and it's so supportive of our goals for cultural resurgence, language revitalization. Like, you need all of those pieces working harmoniously to get Indigenous fashion. And I think there's things that we could just do to discourage, fast fashion consumption. There's no reason why you need, a new outfit every month, or you need to be keeping up with seasonal trends. Like, seasonal trends are completely manufactured by the fashion industry. There's really no reason why we need new clothing. So just like hacking away at that myth that you need to be trendy, you need to be stylish, and perhaps part of that is also just investing more in individual pieces. So instead of buying 10 t-shirts, like, save up and wait to invest in really high quality t-shirts, and where they're coming from. So I think it's just like, it's a few different angles and a few different consumer perceptions that we need to change.
And getting kids to shop secondhand. I've never figured out how do you get that? I mean, I have a 10-year-old boy. He doesn't care where his clothes come from. I can go to the secondhand store. He's just happy. He opens his drawers and there's clothes in there. But, trend-conscious younger kids, it would be a little bit more difficult, I think, to get them to thinking about, you can go and have those high-end things that you want, but, they might be staples that you find from a secondhand store. You were talking too about, us making more of our own clothes. On a podcast I listened to, you talked specifically about this, the graphic tees. There are so many Indigenous designers out there doing graphic. I'm wearing one actually from Wolfpack Apparel, actually, that go with my leggings from Mixed Blood Apparel and my earrings from Métis beater Jake Freeman. I'm decked out in our fashion. But what is this kind of an entrance into, because you are seeing a lot of affordable things that have our brand done by our people with our marks on them, whether it be your graphic tees, or you've got your toques, or just jewelry. What do you make of this? That it seems like it's fairly sudden, right?
For sure, there's been this explosion of new, young entrepreneurial designers. I think if you look at the history of Indigenous fashion's influence on the mainstream industry, it goes through waves where mainstream fashion has been interested in our aesthetics and have appropriated our aesthetics. So we kind of go in and out of fashion, which is interesting. And lately, I think it's been more of us in the driver's seat. But yes, I do caution against the t-shirts in particular. Denim and cotton t-shirts are some of the worst polluters. They use the most amount of water. And what I encourage is Indigenous designers to think about our values. So a t-shirt design, the pattern of a t-shirt might not be an Indigenous design, but we could infuse that t-shirt company with our values of responsibility, reciprocity, respect for land. So you could, instead of selling t-shirts that are sourced from Gildan, which has questionable, sources, offshore production, you could invest in, made in Canada t-shirts that use an organic cotton. Just kind of elevating the quality of the t-shirt, I think, does a better job, and then hits at those Indigenous values. And this is why I often talk about an Indigenous luxury strategy, because I think so many of our cultural products should be considered luxuries. If you think about the amount of time that goes into beadwork, the quality, the culture that goes into it, we shouldn't be selling these items for under $100. So I think we all need to be raising our beadwork prices collectively. And I think to your point about, getting people interested in recycling, I teach a first-year business course, and all my students are proposing these businesses, and so many are proposing upcycling as this model, which is this closed loop system where after you're done wearing your t-shirt, you return it to the producer, they remake it. So I think, as much as possible, we just need to be improving our clothing competencies. Like I don't know how to sew. I couldn't mend something for my life, and I'm a fashion professor. So we all have to kind of have a role in this, and just, taking fashion programs into communities is something I hope to do very soon, just so we know how to mend our clothes, how to make our clothes, how to upcycle our clothes. Like those skills, our aunties, our grandmothers, they had those skills, and they might have got lost in translation, but we need the youth to get passionate about them.
I love this. Riley, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us. I can look forward to the fashion of future of our fashion.
Miigwech, thank you so much.
Speaking of furs and hides, clothing makers are out there bolder than ever, passing on and sharing culture, particularly in the North. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs sat down with some of the best-known names in Northern fashion. Let's watch.
It takes supreme attention to detail when working with traditional furs and hides. Designers in the Northwest Territories carry on culture passed down from generations through sewing and beading. The Naka Indigenous Cultural Gala held in Detta NWT this month featured well-known artists and designers sharing their collection for the first time. Berna Bolio is a Clinchon seamstress, known for her traditional ceremonial clothing and customized bridal and formal wear.
To me, it's for their one big day for them. And for me to be designing that, I feel really proud. I feel very privileged doing that.
She's well educated with diplomas and certificates in fashion design, business, and finance, and had to persevere prejudice in schooling.
We had 3 Native students before, and they never made it. And I said, you haven't tried me. I'm just like, my determination is just so overwhelming. I really want it so badly. So she asked me, if you can go out there and find a sponsor, I will take you in. So that afternoon, I got Native women to sponsor me.
Alice Wheatflat says the opening prayer for the gala. She was born in 1949 in Willowday, near Yellowknife.
They're new kind, you know, they're tiny little beads in there.
She was raised by her aunties, who all sewed.
Back then, they didn't have no beads. They just sewed embroidery thread. Yeah, there's not much color, maybe 3 or 4 colors. Even the beads came in later in the 60s, and it has green, 2 different color, green, yellow, and orange.
By the age of 9, she sewed her first mocks, with some minor hiccups.
This is wraparound, right? And then at the end, you're supposed to cut this piece, and then you fold it.
Yes.
Like that I forgot to do. I forgot to do that one. In the church, and everybody behind just giggling. My aunties are, you know, they're supposed to be praying, not giggling, you know.
Now Wheatflat can make just about anything, for anyone.
They're so proud. They always tell me, I know you made this, they tell me, you know, when I see them downtown.
Sharon Firth wowed audiences on the catwalk for the first time. 4-time Gwich'in Olympian turned to sewing as a way of healing.
Once my twin sister passed away, I had to find something to do. What is Sharon Firth going to do now? And I had no idea. I was so down in the dumps and lost, and because half of me was gone. So I just thought, okay, what would Shirley do?
Along with sealskin, she uses fabrics she picked up from her travels. With every stitch brings satisfaction.
And this here is silk, and the material is from England. The covers, for example, that's my childhood, and that's what I seen my mom wearing, and my aunts from McClavick and McPherson, and you know, they were such beautiful sewers and seamstresses.
From mucklucks to baby belts to mitts, each tells a story, made with pride and love. Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Detta.
If you want to purchase pieces from the North, you can visit nwtarts.com and connect with designers and creators directly. We have to take another break, but when we come back, Ojibwe Cosmetics and the cutest Algonquin fashion designer that you will meet. Stick around. Welcome back. You can't have glam without makeup, and luckily you have options if you're looking to support First Nations glam makeup entrepreneurs. Of course, there's Jen Harper, who started Cheekbone Beauty 4 short years ago and has seen huge success, and by the way, has a new lipstick line collaborating with Métis artist Christy Belcourt. You can check that out at cheekbonebeauty.ca. Joining me now, though, is from the Roseau River Anishinaabe First Nation is Rachel Sini, owner of Ojibwe Cosmetics, and her muse, TikTok sensation Squunchy. Thank you both for joining us. Rachel, how did you get into the makeup business and how long ago?
It was in 2014 I started Ojibwe Cosmetics, and I just started it paycheck to paycheck.
And where was I know that, being environmentally responsible, your products aren't tested on animals. How do you source? I mean, you're based in Winnipeg. You're right now at the Roseau First Nation. How do you even go about sourcing products like that when we're kind of in the middle of nowhere here in Manitoba?
Well, social media is a big promoter. You constantly have to do it every day. You can't just sit and think going to come to you. It won't. It's a lot of hard work, and you have to keep going. And that's why I have this beautiful young lady from Saugeen First Nation. Her name is Honey Brown. She is an Instagram, TikTok influencer, and she has helped my product as well. You have to invest in getting people to do your products online as well and test it. And this is one pretty young lady that has been helping me.
And you are, Honey Brown, you are at Squunchy on TikTok, is that right? 180,000 followers, is a beautiful Anishinaabe from Saugeen First Nation. How did you guys partner up?
Melanie Daniels, a friend of mine on Facebook, had gave me an idea, and it's so cool how our women in business and women who are, she's a graphic designer, she said, you got to contact this young woman, and she has so much followers, and if you just call her, she's so humble and so kind. And I called her up. I told her, come down, I want to meet with you. She did, and go. Now everybody wants to know what Ojibwe Cosmetics is about on the younger demographic.
Well, and so you are wearing, obviously, Ojibwe Cosmetics. What's your favorite of the makeup that you're showcasing on TikTok?
My favorite one is for sure the Cotton Candy palette. It,
yeah.
It has lots of warm tones and pink colors, which are, as you can see, my favorite.
Oh, that's pretty.
They're very, very pigmented. They're one of the best I've used.
What else do you have that's new there that people can find online? Showcase that. What you got?
We have lipstick. It's a 6-piece liquid lipstick. Usually our lipstick.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one she's been really promoting for us. And it has beautiful natural colors, and then it goes to a red. So it's perfect for Christmas.
Yeah. So, Rachel, explain to us, what are some of the highlights of your career in the makeup business versus what are some of the challenges that you're facing now?
The challenges is just getting someone out there. I finally found Squunchy, Honey Brown, and just getting someone out there to actually start trying it. And I guess, a lot of our people, like the Anishinaabe, the Métis, they all purchase the product because we also have apparel. That's where it started from. And I noticed that I got a lot of Métis customers because I open it up to other nations. Like this shirt here is Ojibwe bling.
Yes.
And so free bling, I made a Métis bling.
I'm getting the Métis bling.
Yes. So I know that when I open it up to more of Cree, Dene, I started making that, people were like, oh, well, I'm not Ojibwe. And then I was like, well, do you wear Chanel? And they're like, yeah. Do you wear Chanel like this? It's like, yeah, well, you're not French. Yeah. Kind of like how. And so just promoting women in business is the key, and to being kind to others, to being on top of their sales when they order online. That's the key to success, because if you don't do it quickly, you'll lose your customers. And the kindness is one thing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Quenchi, where can we find you on Instagram and TikTok?
At Quenchi, CWUNCA.
Amazing. We will definitely find you there. Rachel, where can we buy Ojibwe cosmetics? Where can we find it?
You can go to our website. It's www.ojibwe, OJIBWE, cosmetic.com or .ca. Sorry.
.ca. And we can find you on Instagram as well, right? Ojibwe Cosmetics?
It's Ojibwe Clothing Cosmetics on Instagram, and on TikTok, it's Ojibwe Cosmetics. And then there's an online Facebook group called Online Makeup Party with Ojibwe.
Crazy. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, APTN.
Speaking of Christy Belcourt, who we had mentioned earlier, teamed up with Cheekbone Beauty on a new lipstick line. She's also collaborated with Montreal designer Catherine LeBlanc on a brand new clothing collection for everyday and everybody. The Belcourt by LeBlanc collection features Belcourt's bee print and celebrates our sacred relationship to the natural world. Take a look. She's got a tunic, gorgeous. There are leggings there. A halter dress, the cloud dress, which apparently is almost sold out, a headscarf, and a headband, and there's even a baby blanket. Like, can you even imagine a Christy Belcourt designer baby blanket? Like, that is a pretty bougie baby if you have a Christy Belcourt, Catherine LeBlanc baby blanket. The press package for the collection says that the bee in this artwork reminds us of our duty to address a planet in crisis. I'm pretty sure that Christy Belcourt does not sleep with the amount of collaborations she's got going on. LeBlanc is based in Montreal, and all of her materials are locally sourced from fabrics right down to the thread and zippers. All of them are sewn and produced by local workers right in Montreal's vibrant fashion district. So not just slow, sustainable fashion, but very local and now very Métis, thanks to Christy Belcourt. You can shop the Belcourt by LeBlanc collection at Catherine LeBlanc's website, catherineleblanc.com. Lots of gorgeous stuff in there. Shop for yourself for Christmas. Okay, you cannot get any more small business than my next guest. Mind you, her website and her social media presence is beyond sophisticated for her years. Maya Beaudry is the 9-year-old Algonquin entrepreneur behind the successful Cookum Scrunchie brand. I had the pleasure of catching up with her between scrunchies at her home in Gatineau, Quebec earlier this week. Maya, I'm sure everybody is very curious to know, how did you decide to get into the scrunchie business?
I actually was fundraising, and then in March 2020, I turned it into a business using Shopify.
And how did you come up with the name Cookum Scrunchie?
This is a cookum material, and I love scrunchies, and then put that together and made a cookum scrunchies.
You're Algonquin. How does your culture factor into your scrunchie designs, aside from obviously the cookum scarf?
Cookums used to wear the cookum scarves on their heads if they would go outside.
Yes. And so now, if you're not wearing a cookum scarf, we can at least have a little piece of a cookum scarf so we can hold our hair up. Do you have something, you have a basket full of them to show us?
Yeah, I have cookum scrunchies.
Oh, I love it.
You have 10 different colors.
10 different colors, okay. How long does it take you to make a scrunchie?
10 minutes.
So you can plow through. Do you have people that work for you?
I have a support team.
A support team. Are they volunteers?
Yeah.
Nice. How many scrunchies? Okay, so 10 minutes per scrunchie. How many sewing machines do you have going in your house?
I only have 2.
I'm curious, who taught you how to sew, Maya?
Actually, my mom taught me how to sew, and I learned to make scrunchies on YouTube.
And so the fabrics, which we saw, some of the beautiful fabrics, where do you even find fabrics like that?
I find fabrics all over the world.
So you're out, do you go on trips all over the world to source your fabrics, or do you have a favorite website that you go to find it?
I have a favorite website.
Well, I guess we shouldn't ask you about that because we don't want people going and getting some of your fabrics and then going and making their own scrunchies, because that wouldn't be fair, right? Do you think that you're going to branch out into other clothing, or are you going to stick with scrunchies?
I'm going to stick with scrunchies.
What's your goal for your scrunchie line?
To sell them all over the world.
Global scrunchie domination.
Yeah.
I love it. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a lawyer.
Well, you know what? At the pace you're going selling scrunchies, I think you'll have enough money for law school in no time. How do people order your Cookum scrunchies?
I'm putting my business cookumscrunchies.ca.
Perfect Christmas gift ideas, right, Maya?
Yeah.
Okay, well, show us that how to order the Cookum scrunchies again. Hold up that sign in case people didn't write it down. Cookumscrunchies.ca, and you've got 10 different designs available. Get your orders in quick if you want it for Christmas, right?
Yes.
Maya, thank you for taking the time to share this with our audience. We really appreciate it, and good luck to you and all of your future business endeavors.
Thank you for having me.
She was a pleasure. Indigenous Fashion Week kicks off tomorrow. We got to go. I'm out of time. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks to all my guests. Have a great afternoon.